I have a story that happened to me around 7 years ago. I lived in a very nice house in the forest. It was about 40 minutes away from the nearest city. One night that was just like any other. I was already lying in my bed, but I could not get to sleep. As much as I tried to force my eyes closed, I just couldn't fall asleep. I got bored, and I took a book that I had on my nightstand and lit a candle so that I could read. About half an hour later, the candle just went out of nowhere. I had the doors and the windows closed. There were no drafts in the room. I did not take it so seriously, and I lit the candle again. Like 2 minutes later, the candle went out once again, and I began to hear a song in the distance. I began to get scared since there were no other houses near mine, and at the time it was quite weird that there was someone outside in that place. I looked outside the window and I did not see anything strange. Suddenly, the singing stopped for about 30 seconds. When I heard it come back again, it was even louder now, as if it had gotten closer to my house. I laid down and just tried to sleep. I didn't want to take it seriously or believe it was real. I just wanted to believe that maybe I was just too tired and I was hearing things. Then I began to hear the creaking of the front door of my house. I panicked, and I did not know what to do. I was on the top floor, and next to my room I had another room that I used as a cellar of several things. I left my room, trying to make as little noise as possible. I opened the door of the cellar and took my rifle and a lamp. I returned to my room. I did not hear anything. Out of nowhere, I heard a very strong blow that came from the floor from below. I did not want to know what it was. I was hearing footsteps coming from below, heavy ones, loud ones. I heard a very strange sound. It was like a growl or a roar. I began to hear footsteps going up the stairs. The footsteps stopped when they arrived at the entrance to my room. Whatever was outside my room started banging on my door so hard, so much so that the lock on the door broke. The door opens up, but there was no one or nothing outside. I took a deep breath, took the rifle, and left the room. I went downstairs, and there was blood splattered everywhere. I had no idea what to do. I began to listen, and I could hear that same song again. I took my coat, and I went out to see where the song was coming from. And outside, I could not tell which direction the sound was coming from. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere all around me. I kept walking, and from out of nowhere, a tree just started creaking, and it snapped so quickly that it almost fell on top of me. I had no idea what caused it to just snap like that. It didn't look like any of the trees in the area were rotting. I saw my life pass before my eyes. I ran scared towards my house, and in the distance, I saw a silhouette of what seemed to be a person. I was so scared that I didn't even stop to look. I just got to my house and looked for my phone. I called my best friend, while I took everything I could in the shortest possible time. She answered me and asked me why I was calling her at that time. I explained to her as quickly as I could. I took my things to my car, and when I was taking them there, I felt a presence. I felt someone looking at me. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. I felt as if someone touched my shoulder, and I just ran to my car. I started the car as fast as I could, and I went to the house of my best friend. She let me in, and she let me stay very kindly, but I could not sleep at all. That night, the next day, I asked them to accompany me to my house to better see what had happened. We arrived and the house was intact. There was no blood. The lock of my room was intact. The tree that had fallen, it was gone. Only the base of the thing remained. The only difference in my house was that what I took in my car during the morning was not there. I asked my friend if I could stay at their house for a few days, and they said yeah. I took all that belonged from my house and I sold it. I never went back, and I never bothered to investigate. I do not know anything about that house at the moment. If it's abandoned or if someone lives there, I do not know, and I would not like to know. I am 42 years old now and I live in the city. I remember that day quite well, and I could not forget it, even if I tried. This happened to me when I was around 15 years old or so. I went hunting with my dad, a couple of his brothers, and my grandpa. They loved doing this, but I would rather not spend nights in the jungle with mosquitoes, snakes, etc. My family owns land in the jungle, somewhere in picture related. There's a 2-story wooden cabin uphill from a creek in a valley where we hunt peccary, lowland paca, and deer. It takes 2 hours to walk to the cabin where dogs and local hunters that we are friends with are waiting for us. It's a clear sky with full moon. We split to different game trails in the valley. I'm in a hammock high up in a tree, and my dad is sitting in a branch next to me with a rifle. We all have walkie-talkies as well, to warn each other if we see anything. Suddenly, the dogs start barking, and we think that they found game. Everybody is on alert. I don't have a gun because I'm a kid, but I have binoculars and a good overview of the valley. Suddenly, I hear a loud metallic sound. It's like a large rusty machine moving around. I notice that my dad hears it too, and he asks me to give him the walkie-talkie. As he is about to ask if anybody heard the sound, the dogs go silent. My youngest uncle comes through the walkie-talkie and says, "Hey, bro, do you see that light over the creek?" He is on the opposite side of the valley, so he can see farther to the east of the valley from where we are. My oldest uncle replies, "Yes, look, it's hovering over the creek. Do you hear the dogs?" Dad and I are listening to the conversation, and suddenly, the light starts to pass in front of us. It slowly hovers over the creek, as if it's following its path. The light is bright white, and shines the entire forest like an LED lamp pointing towards the small grass. The light makes that metallic sound, but not as loud as it did when it showed up. It hovers over our cabin/hut for a few seconds, and then continues down the creek path. The guy running behind the dogs down the valley comes in and says, "Hey, who was shining that light? The dogs are scared shitless." He thinks they saw a tiger or a puma or something. By tiger, I mean a small kind of tiger. Don't picture a Bengal tiger. The youngest uncle tells him it wasn't us. Something just flew down the creek. They ask my dad if he saw it, and he replies, "Yeah, we saw it." My dad and uncles talk for a bit about what to do. My dad wants to return to the cabin because of me. The dogs are scared and crying and won't help with the hunt anymore, so we all come down our spots and towards the cabin. When we get to the cabin, there is a strange smell of burnt metal, but everything is in place. It had been maybe 30 to 45 minutes since the light was there. Eventually, I fall asleep in my hammock and return to the city the next morning. Nothing else really happened that night, but everybody was on edge, especially the local who owned the hunting dogs. He raised them since they were puppies, and he knows they were not afraid of just anything, and not all of them at the same time afraid of the same thing. They all told hunting stories of weird stuff that happened to them. Only in 2020 did I see these lights again, but they weren't exactly similar. This is my first time telling this story. I felt like I had to get this off of my back and at least let someone hear it. This happened to me around 2 years ago. My parents own a cabin in northern Saskatchewan. Yeah, I'm from Canada. Screw you. I decide that I want to spend some time by myself up there. My parents agree because they want me out of their attic. I've been really into spooky stories and the like for the past little while, so I found the idea of being by myself and isolated with whatever is out there in the northern forest oddly, comforting. I drove up there in late November. I stocked up on food to last a good few months. I leave my phone at home, since I only use it for internet-related stuff. The cabin has electricity and a dish. No internet, but all of my video games are offline anyway. I bring a rifle along as well for hunting. The cabin has this basic rectangular layout with an extension added on when my sister and I were born to add extra room for us on vacations there. It's mostly made out of wood, except for the tin roof on the extension. I unpack my stuff and I chill when I show up. The cabin is really close to the tree line. The clearing it's built on was very small. Others would find this claustrophobic, but I find it kind of comforting. Like I said, I am oddly relaxed when it comes to the vaguely threatening. The first night I chill and listen to the sounds of animals as I fall asleep. No TV, just relaxing and settling into my new environment. I hear cow moos off in the distance, pretty chill. The first day, I get all my winter clothes on and I head out into the woods. I stay close by the trees where the snow is mildly easier to walk through. I don't go out by any major clearings because the snow is much too deep. I am reminded of all of the times I walked through these woods as a kid with my family. I decide to get out further and travel in parts that I never went to before. My parents would never tell us where we could and couldn't go, just never got around to it when I was younger. I hear that cow moose making noise again off in the distance. Hell yeah, maybe I can get up close and have a good look at the thing. Moose are kind of dangerous up here since they are not familiar with people, but I figure I could climb a tree if it charges at me for some reason. I walk to where the call is coming from. The sound isn't really getting any louder, so I figure it must be walking away from me. I can't find any moose tracks, so I decide it's too far away to even chase after. There's only like 7 hours of daylight at this time of year or something like that, so I start walking back. This is not the kind of place that you want to get lost in, especially after dark. Once I'm back home, I start to think about the whole thing. I consider myself paranoid. I cook myself some dinner, and then I go to bed. Things went on quietly for the next few weeks. I found a rotting bull moose with all of the skin on its head chewed off. I just tried to explain it away as maggots or other small animals. I tried to go hunting for deer and anything else that I could find, but I could never find tracks despite all the calls I heard at night, mostly female calls for some reason. I always tell myself that they must just be out further than I usually venture. One day, I go outside, and I actually managed to snag a small buck. Hell yeah. I had never shot one by myself before, so I have no idea how to take care of the meat. I decide I would leave it until tomorrow and butcher it when I wake up. I went full stupid mode and left it hanging outside so that it wouldn't stink up the cabin was my logic. The next day I went outside and there were these massive bites taken out of it. God damn it. Some animal must have gotten to it first and mangled the poor bastard. It really went at it on the head for some reason. All of the skin on the head was just chewed off. I could not really recognize the bite marks, but I decided to stop walking out so far into the woods. I start to wonder how I got a male buck if all of the calls I heard were female. I know what calls mean what, and these were more long drawn out, indicating female. Paranoia sets in since I get anxious about random bullshit. I quickly tried to make myself forget about what I saw since I promised myself I'd stay for the full few months and not go home early. The next night I can't sleep because of the anxious thoughts. I have insomnia. I begin to hear a very slight noise. It was a very quiet night, so I would be able to hear something outside if anything was there. The sound is almost rhythmic, but I can't make out what it is. Eventually it gets louder, as if the sound itself is frustrated. I realize that something must be making it. I sit up and listen to what has now become an audible scratching noise, like something being scraped over wood. The sound travels all the way across the cabin, past where I'm sleeping in the extension, and all the way around again. The second time it passes the extension, it stops right where I am sitting in the bed for just a moment and then continues. This goes on for a few more minutes and then it just stops. I pass out from exhaustion. The next day, I have to convince myself that what happened was not a dream. I begin to form an idea in my mind of some kind of intelligent animal. It can't just be a coincidence. In the middle of the day, I build up the courage to go outside and see what happened. There are scratches in the snow-covered walls. Not enough to wreck the wood, but enough to see a pattern of scratches that were more than a few feet above the ground, as if something did them purposefully. This wasn't just some dumb animal. I finally decide to take a look at my door. The scratches were serious on the wooden door, as if someone with gigantic fingernails spent hours scraping at it. I am tripping balls on fear at this point. Whatever it was intelligent enough to tell that the door was in the way, but predatory enough to use circling as an intimidation tactic. I come to the logical conclusion that whatever this was, it must have been the same thing that mauled my buck. I finally decide to look at the footprints. The best way to describe them is long bear footprints. Whatever the thing is, it certainly was not a bear. I begin to realize something. There were no footprints around the cabin, just ones leading up to it and then leaving. The thing was climbing around my walls and dragging its nails to create the scratches. This is definitely not a bear. I just want to get out of there at this point. The sun starts to go down and storm clouds start moving in. I'd been out here for 2 hours just looking at all of this shit in awe. I can't leave in a blizzard or in the dark, so I lock myself in and get into bed with my gun. My mind starts racing when nighttime hits. The wind is howling outside, but off in the distance, I hear that goddamn cow moose call again. I begin to put 2 and 2 together. Whatever the hell this thing was, it was calling male animals in by mimicking female mating calls. It must have preferred male animals since they have more meat. When I left that goddamn buck outside, it could tell that I was here. I lured that thing towards me. The first full day I spent here and was trilling that cow moose call, it must have been right fucking above me in a tree. My train of thought was stopped when I heard that goddamn scratching noise once again. I can barely make it out because of the loud-ass blizzard, but I recognize it. It either sees me as an alpha predator rival or as prey, and at this point, I don't know which one is worse. This goddamn thing is insanely good at climbing because I hear the sounds of feet on a wooden roof. The storm is so loud, I can't make out exactly where the feet are on the roof. I'm just hearing the sounds of feet on wood and snow faintly. Suddenly, the sound changes to feet on tin. It is right above me. I can't handle this shit anymore, but I can't leave either because that's exactly what it wants. The sounds of banging on tin go on for what feels like hours as the storm rages on. Eventually it goes away, thank God. The blizzard begins to die down too. I can hear things more clearly outside. I was not prepared for what happened next. I hear a woman's voice outside, not making any discernible words, almost babbling and moaning. "Oh no you don't, you barefoot demon. You are not tricking me like you did all those moose and deer." It sounds very close by, at least within the tree line. I grab a big ass flashlight and open one of the unlocked windows. I shine it outside, where the sound is coming from. I see a 7-foot tall, slim muscular build at first, then my eyes adjust to what I am looking at. The face of this thing is a hideous interpretation of a human's, like if you described to an alien what a person looked like and then told them to draw it, then fed the drawing to dogs. Its nose was turned up, like it was facing directly at me. Its eyes were not sunken in like one would suspect. They were bulbous and protruding, and it had these gigantic pupils. The eyes looked almost swollen. The best way to describe the mouth was like the one on the mouth of Sauron from Return of the King, round and way too big. The face was shaped like a baboon's face, very oval with a heavy brow ridge, the only difference being that it was incredibly flat and its forehead was huge. It pulled its lips back to bare its teeth in a predatory fashion, except all it looked like was as if it was smiling at me. Its hands were a grotesque combination of sloth and human hands. In one of its hands, it was holding the head of a buck. It had all of the skin on the head chewed off, just like before. This was a goddamn threat. After getting a good look at the thing, I take a shot at it with my rifle. I'm not sure if I hit the thing since the flashlight dropped, but I could see it drop the head and run off into the woods. I grabbed the flashlight and pointed the thing in its direction again, and I could barely make out the shape of it climbing a tree in seconds and jumping off from one tree to another. I stayed up the rest of the night and left in the morning. I came home early and told my parents I was feeling lonely as an excuse to come back. I never told them about it because they would have accused me of taking drugs. This is probably the only time I will ever tell this story anyways. I don't believe in magic or forest demons because I'm not a complete moron. I believe what I saw was a grotesque failure of evolution. Some mutated animal that managed to survive long enough out there. I'm not giving it a stupid name like other idiots do when they see shit on here. I am never going back to northern Saskatchewan as long as I live. I have never posted this story before, but this thread got me in a mood. My family has owned this vacation house on the Oregon coast since the 1960s. It's naturally a very dreary place. The neighborhood was heavily wooded and only about half a mile inland from the water. There were a few houses dotted around the woods. One has always stuck out. It has been abandoned and boarded up my entire life. It always had an ominous vibe. Even the adults did not like hanging out near the place. There were even a couple of weather-worn wooden headstones on the property, which I always thought was odd. My friends and I used to like to try and freak each other out by making dares on who would get the closest to the house. I even remember seeing figures in the second-story windows at some points in my life. Always a really unsettling place. One day, my friend John and I are bored at the coast. We are probably about 8 years old, and we decide to go and spook ourselves at the house. We walk down the gravel road to the house, but something is different this time. The unsettling aura is completely gone. I even remember the weather clearing up and the area being covered in a warm, misty moss. Shortly after we arrive, a girl wearing a blue dress walks out from behind the house. She was our age and claimed that she and her family lived in the house. My friend and I were confused because this place had been boarded up for as long as we could both remember, but she seemed not to hear us. She asked us if we would join her for a tea party in her treehouse. We were surprised, as we had never noticed a treehouse on the property before, but we joined her and hung out for what seemed like a few hours. It was getting late, and we needed to eat. We invited her to join us for food, but she said her parents did not want her to leave the property. We asked her if she could ask her parents, but she dismissed the idea. We left, had dinner, and told our parents about what happened. I remember that my mom was really disturbed by the story. Sure enough, the next day we returned to the house, and it had returned to its ominous state. We looked for evidence of our new friend, but there was no trace. The only clue that was left to us was the treehouse that she had taken us to in the backyard. It was still there, but it was completely overgrown with lichen, entirely dilapidated, and falling apart from years of near constant rainfall and salt air. We tried to climb up to the treehouse, but it was too far gone and unsafe. My friend and I both remember the story vividly, but we had a big falling out in middle school, and we have not spoken since then, so I have no idea what he thinks about it. Looking back, it feels like a totally benign experience. I'm not sure if it was a ghost, or an incident of isolated time travel. It has always felt like one of the most true paranormal events of my life. I'm curious to know if anyone else has had similar experiences. Okay, so I feel it's important that I tell you guys about this experience I had as a kid, and maybe y'all can help me understand what it was. When this happened to me, I was in the 4th grade in Southern California. This was post 9/11. It was a very pleasant spring day. It's lunchtime, and my friends and I are eating in the cafeteria. The cafeteria is set up where we enter from the side and exit in the back. If I recall correctly, the school would provide us with stationery along with our lunch. Sometimes it would be crayons, booklets, posters, etc. On this fateful day, I had a hot dog on a wheat bun, milk, a fruit cup, and a special colored pencil. This pencil was the shit looking back. It had 4 colors mixed into one. Unfortunately, at the time, I was a bit of an edgelord, and so I thought the pencil was gay. I also did not want my milk and fruit, so I gave it away. I left my pencil at the table for whoever wanted it. I was the first one in my grade who finished their lunch and exited via the back door. As I walked out, I was excited, because I would have first dibs on the dodgeball. I had nothing else in my mind. Outside the cafeteria, there is another eating area followed by a tree-covered path that leads to the blacktop/playground area. This is where my encounter occurred. As I made my way to the tree-covered footpath, I was called out to by name. This caught my attention really quickly, and I turned and I saw this little girl. This child was shorter than me and looked like a kindergartner, but I will never forget how she looked. She was dressed all in black and had a skull on her shirt. Now, at my school, uniforms were mandatory, no exceptions. Her hair was a blonde and crisp blue eyes. I thought to myself, who is this girl? Why is she out of class? Each grade has different times for lunch, and how did she know my name? It felt like time was standing still. She spoke again. She said, "You forgot this," while smiling. It was that multicolored pencil that I left in the cafeteria. She tries to hand it over to me. I, like a dumbass, say to her, "No thanks, I don't want it, you can keep it." I don't remember what she says next. If anything, she protested. She really wanted me to keep the pencil, I'm sure of that. I remember that I wanted to be the first to get the dodgeball. We're still alone out here, and there is not one adult in sight. This is very unusual. The teacher's aides usually come out early to set up the games and sports that we play for recess. Again, time feels like it is dragging on. I collect my thoughts again, and I can only really think of one thing. Dodgeball. I tell the girl deuces and make my way down the path to the playground. I really did not want that pencil, I said to myself as I waited for the teacher's aide to show up. At this point I look back and the girl is just gone. I didn't even see her walking off. She literally just vanished. Later during recess, I asked my friends who sat with me at the table if they saw the girl get my pencil. They said no. I asked another group of kids if they saw the little girl. The guy tells me no, but one of the girls says that the devil is loose on campus. I've heard this rumor before. It's been circulating for weeks at this point, and I thought the guys were just saying that to scare people. I decide to think nothing of it until recess is over. Later at home, I start to look back and realize how weird the whole encounter was. I remember hearing rumors about weird stuff happening to the girls in the restroom. Screams and doors slamming by themselves. Some would say that they saw a ghost in the hall. Others would say it's the devil. As for myself, I remember seeing a bunch of dead rats piled at the door of the girls' restroom. This happened on more than one occasion. At the time, though, I just attributed this to cats. Anyways, at home, I told my grandma what happened, and she tells me it could have been a witch and that I should have been more careful. What do you guys think? A witch or the devil himself? I used to get this weird thing back in high school a lot. I would be sitting in class, doing work or listening to the teacher lecture or whatever, and all of a sudden I would get a flash in my head. It would be a bright light, and then the room I was in would spin around twice, and the colors would invert for a second and then go back to normal, and I would get this feeling of something creeping up my throat and a taste at the back of my tongue that I could never really describe, even if I wanted to. It wasn't bile or vomit or anything like that. It tasted inorganic, I suppose is the best way I can describe it. After all of that, I would find the room darken significantly, but everything was still there, and I could still hear the teacher talking, but it would be about something different than he was going on about when all of this started. I could look around and move my hands, but every time I did, the feeling and pressure in my throat intensified. After about 30 seconds, it would all go away, and I would be back sitting in my desk in my normal classroom, usually with the teacher, just about to ask a question relating to whatever it was he was talking about before the transportation took place. Every time, shortly after I would return, the teacher would continue on, and soon begin to say exactly what I had heard him saying during the episode, and when he got to the end of what I had heard before, the whole thing would sometimes happen again. 3 times in a row was the most that it ever happened, and it's only happened to me twice in the 5 years since I graduated, but it used to freak me out really badly. I tried explaining it to my girlfriend, but she did not believe me, and eventually started accusing me of doing drugs and such, which was entirely untrue.